Good morning, guys. Welcome to the Dark Tales of the Mind. I'm your host, Lucian Graves, and today we will be exploring Chapter 4 of my book, St. Samuel. I write psychological thrillers, horror, and all kinds of stuff, so if that kind of thing, you know, sparks your interest, please, by all means, you have pretty much found the place to go. I'm not going to harass you for likes, comments, and subscribes, as always. This is just therapy for me. So, with that being said, welcome to the edge of the reality, and I'll start chapter 4. Chapter 4 The Weight of Silence. The bathroom mirror reflected a man Samuel barely recognized. Water dripped from his face, pooling in the sink, but it did not wash away the feeling burrowing deep inside his chest. Ruiz's voice still echoed in his head. No room for hesitation. Samuel gripped the edges of the sink, knuckles white. He had told himself he could keep things separate, that what he did for Ruiz had nothing to do with the father he was trying to be. But Rachel's voice cut through the lie. One day, you're going to wake up and realize you're not doing this for him. You're doing this for yourself. Samuel squeezed his eyes shut. He had already woken up, and the truth was staring him in the face. The vibration of his phone on the counter made him jolt. He reached for it, hesitating for a split second before checking the screen. Ruiz, of course. Samuel exhaled sharply, then answered. You rested? Ruiz asked. His voice was casual, like they were discussing the weather. Samuel swallowed down this bitterness in his throat. What do you need? A chuckle, straight to business. I like that. Ruiz paused, then his voice took a sharper edge. Come see me. We've got work to do. The line went dead. Samuel stood there for a long moment staring at his reflection. No room for hesitation. He grabbed his keys and walked out the door. The drive to Ruiz's estate was long. The road stretched endlessly under the morning light. The radio played, but Samuel wasn't listening. He was a mess of tangled thoughts, all leading back to the same inescapable truth. He wasn't in control anymore. Ruiz had seen that. By the time he pulled through the estate gates, his stomach was tight, knot of unease. He wasn't sure if it was fear or something worse, acceptance. As he stepped inside, Ruiz was already waiting under the dimly lit study. Swirling a glass of dark liquor. The man's expressions were unreadable, but there was something behind his eyes, a knowing look, as if he could already see the next step Samuel would take before he even made it. Have a seat, Ruiz said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Samuel didn't move. What's the job? Ruiz smirked. No pleasantries today? Fine. He leaned forward, setting down a drink. There's a problem that needs to be handled. A man's gotten too comfortable running his mouth. Samuel's pulse ticked up. You won't need a gun, Ruiz added, almost amused. Not for this one. I just need you to deliver a message, face to face. Samuel exhaled slowly, forcing his shoulders to stay loose, as if he doesn't listen. And if he doesn't listen? Ruiz's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then we showed him why he should have. There it was, the next step down a road he already started walking. Samuel hesitated just for a second, but Ruiz caught it. Problems, amigo? Samuel met his gaze, his own mask slipping into a place. No. Ruiz studied him, then nodded approvingly. Good. He leaned back, picking up his drink again. Because this isn't just a job, Samuel, it's proof. Samuel stiffened. Proof of what? That you understand how things work. Now, Ruiz's voice lowered, sharp as a blade. That you're not the man Rachel thinks you are. That you're one of us. The words hit like a gut punch. Samuel clenched his jaw, forcing himself to keep his expression blank. He should walk away. He should tell Ruiz to find someone else. But Ruiz had already started pulling strings in his custody case. Samuel knew what that meant, that there was no out. Not unless he was willing to lose everything. He exhaled slowly, nodding once. Where is he? Ruiz's smile returned, full of satisfaction. That's the spirit. Rachel's doubts deepened. While Samuel drove deeper into Ruiz's world, Rachel sat in the parking lot of a law office, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She had spent the morning making calls, digging where where she wasn't supposed to. But what she found didn't make sense. Samuel's new lawyer, this high-end, impossible-to-afford firm, was connected, not to just money, but to people, dangerous people. Rachel's stomach twisted. She had always known Samuel had his demons, but this was desperation. This was something else, something worse. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. She needed answers, and she knew exactly where to start looking. The drive to the meet was silent. Samuel gripped the wheel, his knuckles pale, his mind a storm of thoughts. He could not run. Ruiz's words lingered, pressing into his chest like a slow building weight. That you're not the man Rachel thinks you are, that you're one of us. The address Ruiz had given him led to a rundown auto shop on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where no one asked questions and no one heard screams. He parked, took a slow breath, then stepped inside. The man he was supposed to talk to was already waiting, tied to a chair, bruised but still conscious. A mechanic's light flickered overhead, casting long skeletal shadows across the stained concrete. Ruiz's men stood on either side, silent, waiting. Samuel didn't want to be here. He didn't want to do this, but there was no room for hesitation. One of the men tossed him a set of brass knuckles. Make him understand, the man said. Samuel caught them, his fingers curling around the cold metal. The man in the chair coughed, lifting his swollen face, just enough to look at Samuel. Please, he rasped. Samuel's stomach twisted. He knew that fear. He had felt it himself when he was younger, when he had no power, when the world had chewed him up and spit him out, and now he was on the other side. The brass knuckles felt like 100 pounds in his grip. He didn't want to do this. He didn't want to be this. But Ruiz had made sure that there was no choice. His son's future, his own survival, everything was in the balance. On a knife's edge, and Ruiz was holding the blade. The man in the chair swallowed hard. You don't have to do this. Samuel clenched his jaw. Yes, I do. Then he swung. The first hit landed with a sickening crack. Then another and another. The sound filled the shop, bone against metal, the ragged gasp of a man, too weak to fight back. Blood spattered onto Samuel's sleeve, his skin, but he didn't stop, because if he stopped, Ruiz would know, and if Ruiz knew, then Samuel's son was as good as gone. So he just kept going, until the world blurred, until his knuckles ached, until the man in the chair slumped forward unconscious. Silence. Samuel's breaths came hard and fast, his vision swimming. He had told himself he was doing this for his son, but standing there, covered in another man's blood, he wondered if Rachel had been right all along. Maybe this wasn't about survival anymore. Maybe this was who he was now. The thought made him sick. One of Ruiz's men clapped him on the shoulder. Welcome to the family. Samuel barely made it outside before he threw up. Rachel pushes forward, miles away. Rachel sat at her laptop, scrolling through pages of legal filings and corporate holdings. She had started looking for Samuel's lawyer. Instead, she found something worse. Ruiz's name buried in places it shouldn't be. Law firms, offshore accounts, businesses that didn't exist. And now Samuel was caught in the middle of it. Rachel's heart pounded. If she didn't do something soon, she was going to lose him completely. And this time it wouldn't be to the courts. It would be to something she couldn't pull him back from. something that might kill him. She reached for her phone. It was time to stop asking questions and start getting answers. Samuel sat in his truck, gripping the wheel so tightly his hands ached. His knuckles were raw from the night before, bruised and split open. The blood had dried beneath his fingernails, but his stomach churned, but with a sickness that wasn't just physical. He had crossed a line, not for the first, not the last. His mind wouldn't let him forget the sound of it, the way the man pleaded, the way his own fist had met his flesh, how easy it had been, how natural, and how that terrified him. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Ruiz. Samuel hesitated, then picked up. You good, amigo? Ruiz's voice was smooth, conversational, like they were still talking about the weather. Samuel swallowed. Yeah, you sure? Because I got word from the boys you were looking a little green when you left last night. Samuel clenched his jaw. I did what you asked. A chuckle. That you did. But you and I both know this isn't about one job. It's about commitment. And I need to know if you're still with us. Samuel's pulse ticked up. What does that mean? It means I got something else lined up for you, something bigger, a real test. Samuel exhaled slowly, forcing himself to keep his voice steady. What is it? Ruiz let the silence stretch just a little, just long enough to make it uncomfortable. Then we meet tonight. We'll talk details in person. Click. The line went dead. Samuel slumped back in his seat, running his hand over his face. His skin was clammy, but his body aching in a way that had nothing to do with exhaustion and everything to do with the rot spreading inside of him. He thought this would be the end once he proved himself, but Ruiz didn't want proof. He wanted obedience. And Samuel was running out of ways to pretend he had a choice. That night, Samuel sat in his apartment, bottle of whiskey half drained on the table beside him. His hands were shaking. His mind wouldn't shut up. He had told himself he was in control of this, that he could keep his real life separate from the one Ruiz was dragging him into. But that was a lie. Rachel was right. He wasn't doing this for his son anymore. He was doing this because he was too far gone to stop. The phone buzzed again. He ignored it. He reached for the whiskey instead, taking a long pull, letting the burn chase away the guilt crawling in his ribs. For a moment, just a moment, he almost felt numb. But then, a knock at the door. Samuel froze. His heart slammed against his ribs. Slowly he stood, moving towards the door, hand hovering over the knob. Another knock, harder this time. And then Ruiz's voice, low, amused, deadly. You gonna make me wait all night? Samuel exhaled. Oh, Samuel closed his eyes, exhaled sharply. Then he opened the door and stepped further into the darkness. Ruiz stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, his presence filling the small apartment like a slow rolling storm. The air was thick with the scent of whiskey, cigarette smoke, and something worse, guilt. Samuel stood there, shoulders stiff, trying to shake off the haze of alcohol. His body ached, but his head ached worse. Ruiz scanned the room, the empty bottle, the bruises on Samuel's knuckles, the weight pressing down on him like a ghost. You look like hell, Ruiz said, smirking. Samuel didn't respond. Ruiz walked past him, settling onto a worn-out couch like he owned the place. Do you always drink this much when you're celebrating? Samuel clenched his jaw. That what this is? Ruiz chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. You should be proud. You did good. Samuel swallowed hard, his throat dry. Then why are you here? Ruiz leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Because one job doesn't mean shit, Samuel. You think just because you threw a few punches, you're in? He shook his head. Nah. That was just to see if you had it in you. Samuel exhaled. And? A pause. Then Ruiz's smirk faded. Now we find out if you're really one of us. The test. Samuel knew better than to ask questions, but the way Ruiz studied him, like a hunter watching prey, made his skin crawl. You remember the man you tuned up? Ruiz said. Turns out he didn't learn his lesson. Someone bailed him out. And now he's talking again. Ruiz's stomach twisted. I thought you said this wasn't a kill job. Ruiz tilted his head. It wasn't. He let the silence stretch a long, cruel, deliberate thing. But things change. Samuel felt the floor tilt beneath him. A beating was one thing. He couldn't lie to himself, tell himself it wasn't permanent. But this, Ruiz was watching him carefully now, reading him. You hesitated last time, Ruiz said, and I let you slide. But hesitation means weakness, and weakness gets people killed. So here's your shot to prove you belong. Samuel's pulse pounded in his ears. Ruiz leaned back, draping an arm over the back of the couch. It's simple. You put him down, clean, no mess, no loose ends. Samuel breathed. Samuel's breath came shallow. He shook his head. Ruiz's face darkened. You what? Samuel swallowed. The walls felt like they were closing in. I don't do that. Ruiz studied him for a long moment, then sighed. You still think you got a choice? He stood, walking towards Samuel, stopping close. Too close. You think I don't know why you're here? Ruiz's voice dropped. You think you didn't come for a paycheck, amigo. You came to me because you were losing. Losing your job, losing your kids, losing everything. Samuel's jaw tightened, but Ruiz wasn't done. You want your son? You want to keep that little life what little life you got left? He let the words sink in, then shrugged, then stopped pretending. You're better than this. Silence. The room felt suffocating. Samuel knew he had already lost the argument. Ruiz wasn't just testing him, he was backing him into a corner. And deep down, Samuel knew what happened to men who didn't follow orders. Ruiz clapped him on the shoulder. You get one night to decide. His voice was tight, almost playful. After that, well, let's just say I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. Then he was gone, leaving Samuel alone with the weight of what he had just asked him to do. The second Ruiz left, Samuel collapsed onto the couch, his breath ragged, his body shaking, his heart slamming against his ribs. He could still taste the blood from the last job, feel it on his skin. But this wasn't the same. This wasn't a warning. This was a life. Could he do it? No. But could he say no? Also no. his hands fisted in his hair. He squeezed his eyes shut. He needed to think. He needed to breathe. He grabbed the bottle, but it was empty. He let out a ragged breath and threw it across the room, shattering it against the wall. It didn't help. Nothing would. Because Ruiz was right. He had lost too much. And now, if he didn't go through with this, he would lose everything. His son, his life, and maybe worse. He'd lose the last piece of himself, still fighting to hold on. He didn't know what scared him more, pulling the trigger or realizing deep down maybe he already knew what he was going to do. Samuel sat in a truck outside the dingy motel where Ruiz's target was held up. His pulse hammered in his skull, his fingers tapping restlessly on the steering wheel. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, his body was running on fumes and bad decisions. The gun sat heavy in the glove box. All he had to do was go in, pull the trigger, and walk away. That's what Ruiz expected. That's what Samuel had to do, but every part of him rebelled against it. Killing a man wasn't something you came back from. He thought about his son. Would he still be able to look him in the eyes? A sharp knock on the driver's side window made him jump. He darted to the glove box before His hand darted to the glove box before he saw. It wasn't Ruiz's men. It was Rachel. Samuel froze. The world tilted. She shouldn't be here. She was supposed to be home, safe, out of this. He rolled the window down an inch. Rachel, what the hell are you doing here? She leaned down, eyes sharp, voice low. I could ask you the same damn thing. Samuel's blood ran cold. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. I need you to leave, he muttered, glancing around, half expecting Ruiz's men to come from out of the shadows. Rachel's jaw tightened. I know who he is, Samuel. Ruiz. I know what he's pulling you into. His heart slammed against his ribs. You don't. I saw the money transfer, she cut in. The lawyers, the sudden change in your custody case. You think I wouldn't notice? She excelled sharply, shaking her head. How deep are you in? Samuel swallowed hard. He couldn't answer that. Rachel's voice wavered. Are you about to kill somebody? And the words landed like a gut punch. Samuel looked away. It's not that simple. Rachel's eyes darkened. It is. You walk away. You stop this before it's too late. A bitter laugh scraped out of him. You don't get it, Rachel. If I stop now, I lose everything. You think this is how you win? She shot back. You think you can still do this? You think you can do this and still be the father our son needs? Samuel clenched his fist. If I don't, I won't be around to find him for him at all. The silence stretched between them, and then Rachel's voice dropped, raw and desperate. Please, Samuel, come home. For a second, he wanted to get in the truck, drive away, pretend none of this ever happened. But then a car pulled into the lot, blacked out windows, Ruiz's men. Samuel's stomach turned into ice. Rachel noticed it too. Who is that? He didn't answer. Instead, he shoved open the truck door and grabbed her arm. You need to go now. She resisted. I'm not leaving you. Rachel, go. His voice was sharp, harsher than he meant. The car door opened. Two men stepped out. Rachel hesitated. Then her eyes flickered with something fear. Finally, she turned and walked away, fast but controlled, disappearing around the corner of the motel. Samuel exhaled sharply, forcing himself to stay calm. The men approached, one of them nodding. Ruiz sent us to make sure you followed through. Samuel's blood ran cold. Rachel had been right. He wasn't just in deep. He was drowning. And now, if he didn't act fast, Rachel might drown with him. The two men stopped just feet from him, their presence a silent warning. One of them stocky with a thick neck and dead eyes, the other leaner, younger, eager to prove himself. Samuel felt the weight of their stare. They weren't just here to check in on him. They were here to make sure he didn't screw this up. Clock's ticking, man, the stocky one said, voice like a gavel. Ruiz don't like to be kept waiting. Samuel forced a breath through his nose. He could still feel Rachel's presence lingering in the air. She had seen too much, said too much. If Ruiz found out, no, he couldn't let that happen. Samuel's fingers twitched at his side. The motel door stood just feet away, just a few steps away. A thin slab of wood between him and the man Ruiz wanted dead. His chest tightened. It was supposed to be simple. Go in, do the job, walk out. But nothing about this was simple. You need to push, the younger one taunted, smirking, or you get in cold feet. Samuel exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders. They wanted to kill her, so he gave him one. His expression hardened, his voice steady. I don't need shit from you. He turned and strode towards the door, forcing himself not to hesitate. Every step felt like a death march. The moment he reached the door, he could hear the movement inside, the shuffle of feet, the flick of a ladder, a man waiting to die, not even knowing it. Samuel's hand hovered over the doorknob. He glanced back once. The two men stood by his truck, watching, expecting. Samuel pushed the door open. The room smelled like stale smoke and cheap cologne. The man inside, mid-40s, balding, a bruise still blooming along his jaw from where Samuel's last visit, looked up where he sat on the edge of the bed. His eyes flickered with recognition, then fear. You, he rasped. Samuel shut the door behind him. The man stiffened. No, man, listen. I didn't say anything. I swear to God I didn't. Samuel pulled the gun from his waistband and leveled it at him. The man froze, hands trembling. Samuel could hear his own heartbeat, a deafening drum in his ears. Please, the man whispered. I got kids, man. I didn't talk. I swear I didn't. I just want to go home. Samuel's grip tightened. His own son's face flashed in his mind. Could he do this? Could he really pull the trigger and erase this man from the world? Could he live with the weight of it? His finger hovered over the trigger. One pull, that's all it takes. Then, a noise outside. A flicker of movement in the window's reflection. Rachel. She hadn't left. She was watching. Samuel's stomach lurched. If she saw this, if she saw what he was about to do, something inside of him cracked wide open. He had already lost himself in the world, Ruiz's world, but he couldn't let her see him become the monster. His mind raced, his pulse pounded. He had seconds to decide. Then Samuel moved. He fired, but not at the man. Instead, he turned, shot out the motel window, shattering the glass, sending shards flying into the night. The man let out a strangled gasp. Outside, the two men startled. Samuel spun towards the guy, grabbing him by the collar. "Run, now," he hissed. "Now." The man didn't need to be told twice. He bolted out the back door. Just as the two men burst in, guns drawn, Samuel turned, chest heaving. "The hell happened?" the stocky one snapped. Samuel shook his head, expressions tight. "Someone was watching. I saw movement move past the window." He gestured to the shattered glass. "No clean shot. Had to bail." The younger one narrowed his eyes. "You let him go?" Samuel squared his shoulders. "I lost the shot. You want to tell Ruiz I botched it? Be my guest." The tension stretched tight in the room. The stocky one snorted. "Shit, Ruiz ain't going to be happy with this." "No, he won't," Samuel agreed, voice hollow. They didn't need the whole truth. He didn't need to know it. They didn't need to know that he had just made a choice, and that choice, it had painted a target on his back. The gun sat between them, a sentence waiting to be carried out. Samuel's fingers twitched, breathing slow and measured, but inside he was free falling. Rachel's eyes locked onto his. She didn't speak, but she didn't have to. "Don't do this." Oh shit, hold on. Ruiz leaned back, his expression calm, almost expectant, like he already knew how this would end. "You wanted to protect your family," Ruiz said, voice smooth as glass. "Here's your chance." Samuel's heart pounded. "But this isn't protection," he ground out. Ruiz's smile didn't falter. "No." "Then you tell me what it is." Samuel swallowed. It was a leash, a test, a way to make sure he belonged to Ruiz completely. His gaze flicked to the gun. One bullet, one pull. End it. Prove yourself. No loose ends. Rachel was still staring back at him. Her breath coming in shallow burst. She wasn't begging. She knew begging wouldn't work. Instead, she looked at him with something worth understanding. She knew what the world had done to him, and she knew he had already stepped too far inside to walk out clean. "You want proof?" Samuel asked, his voice eerily steady. Ruiz lifted his chin slightly as if amused. "That's the idea." Samuel reached for the gun. Rachel stiffened, but she didn't make out a sound. His fingers curled around the grip of it. The weight sent a shudder through him. This was it, the moment that had sealed his fate. He raised the gun, but not at Rachel, at Luis. The room shifted. The air grew razor thin. Luis's smirk vanished. "The hell are you doing?" Luis muttered, stiffening. Samuel didn't blink, didn't move. He kept the barrel level with Luis's face. "You wanted proof," Samuel said, his voice a quiet storm. "Here it is." Ruiz's smile deepened, but there was something else in his eyes now. Curiosity. Luis shifted, uneasy. "You're pointing that at the wrong person, man." Samuel's grip didn't falter. "Am I?" Luis's confidence cracked just a little. Samuel kept his breathing steady. "This isn't about her," he said. "It's about you. You don't trust me. You don't think I'm willing to bleed for this life for Ruiz? Luis scoffed, but his posture was tight. So what? You gonna shoot me to prove your point? Samuel let the silence stretch. The tension coiled, thick and suffocating. Then Ruiz chuckled, a slow, deliberate chuckle. Now this is interesting. Luis shot him a glance, suddenly uncertain. Boss? Ruiz lifted a hand. Relax, Luis. Let's see where this goes. Samuel's mind raced. He was playing a losing game, but he had to see it through. Rachel's breathing was shaking behind him. He could feel her fear pressing against his spine. Ruiz was watching him closely now, weighing every move. You're smart, Samuel, Ruiz said, but smart doesn't mean loyal, and loyalty doesn't mean hesitation. Samuel's stomach twisted. I didn't hesitate. You did, Ruiz corrected, his voice smooth as silk, but maybe you're making up for it now. He leaned forward slightly. So tell me, if I tell you to pull that trigger right now, a slow pause, will you? Louise stiffened. Rachel barely breathed. And Samuel, he knew there was no good answer. If he shot Louise, he proved he was willing to kill for Ruiz. If he didn't, Ruiz would see through this act, and Rachel wouldn't walk out of here. Checkmate. Samuel exhaled slowly. Then he made his choice. His finger tightened, and at the very last second, he shifted his aim and fired at Ruiz's whiskey glass instead. The glass exploded, shards flying across the room. Ruiz didn't move, didn't flinch. He sat there, the ghost of a smirk on his lips. Luis, on the other hand, jolted back like he had been shot himself. Rachel let out a choking breath. Samuel lowered the gun. His voice was ice. You wanted proof. I just showed you I don't miss. A long stretch, a long stretching silence, and then Ruiz laughed, a deep, genuine laugh. You got balls, Ruiz said, shaking his head. I'll give you that. Samuel didn't react. Ruiz's amusement lingered for a moment longer, then faded. He stood slowly, stepping closer, too close. Samuel forced himself not to react as Ruiz stared him down. You don't get second chances in this world, Samuel, Ruiz muttered. I like you, but if you ever waste another bullet that isn't in the head of one of the men I tell you to kill, a pause. Ruiz smiled. I'll make sure the next test isn't a game. Samuel held his gaze, his pulse hammered against his ribs. Ruiz turned away. Take her home, he said, nodding towards Rachel. She doesn't leave town. If she so much as breathes the wrong way, I'll know. Samuel clenched his jaw. Understood. Ruiz looked over his shoulder, dark amusement in his eyes. Oh, and Samuel, he turned. Ruiz's smile sharpened. Next time, you won't have the luxury of a warning shot. Samuel didn't reply. He just nodded, took Rachel's arm, and walked out, his pulse pounding with the weight of what he had just said, what he had just done, and what he had just set in motion. Samuel gripped Rachel's arm as they stepped outside, his heart still hammering against his ribs. The night air hit him like a slap, sharp and unforgiving. She didn't resist as he guided her towards the truck. Did she trust him, or was she too stunned to fight? Neither of them spoke. Ruiz's men lingered near the window, near the house, shadows watching, waiting, making sure Samuel did exactly what he was told. When they reached the truck, Samuel opened the door, guiding Rachel inside. His hands trembled as he closed it behind her, then stood still for a moment, breathing, trying to piece together what the hell had just happened. He had spared her life, but barely. Ruiz had let him walk away for now. But the price of the mercy, everything. As he slid into the driver's seat, his grip tightened on the wheel. Are you hurt? He asked, voice low. Rachel didn't answer right away. Then, are you? He exhaled through his nose. We need to leave now. She turned her head toward him, her gaze drilling into him. Where are we going, Samuel? Home. He wanted to say, but home didn't exist anymore, not after tonight. Instead, he put the truck in gear and pulled away from the compound. The silence between them was unbearable. Then Rachel finally spoke, voice razor thin. What the hell did you do? Samuel's grip tightened on the wheel. I saved your life, Rachel, he let out. Rachel let out a bitter laugh. No, you postponed my execution. There's a difference. He didn't answer because she was right. Rachel shook her head. This isn't just about me, is it? Her voice was quiet but sharp. It's about you. Samuel clenched his jaw. Rachel, you're trapped, she cut in, and you're pulling me under with you. A long, suffocating silence. Samuel kept his eyes on the road. He had no defense. His stomach clenched. You weren't scared. You weren't scared, she murmured. You weren't even desperate. Her voice lowered. You were something else. Samuel swallowed hard. You don't know what you're talking about. Rachel stared at him, unblinking, but she did, and that terrified him. Because if Rachel, the one person who had ever seen the best in him, was starting to see something else, then maybe he was too far gone. The highway stretched before them, endlessly, empty. Samuel's paranoia didn't ease. Ruiz wasn't done with him, not even close. The man had given the man had given him a pass tonight, but that wasn't mercy. It was set up. Ruiz was waiting to see what Samuel would do next, waiting for him to fall deeper. Samuel could still hear his voice. Next time, you won't have the luxury of the warning shot. Rachel shifted in her seat. You know he's never letting you go, right? Samuel didn't answer because he knew he had already stepped past the point of no return, and soon Ruiz was going to make sure he proved it. Well, that concludes chapter 4. As always, I appreciate you for tuning in and listening to my book. You can find it on Amazon. Uh, it is called Saint Samuel, and I'm not going to harass you for likes, comments, and subscribes or anything like that. I just genuinely appreciate y'all allowing me to sit here and do therapy with y'all. Um, y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you.